With the election just around the corner, Australians are being gaslit by this Labor government, this Albanese government, on an industrial scale. Here's just a few examples. Firstly, there's our Minister for Homelessness and Housing, Claire O'Neill. She's taken some time off from making TikTok videos.
He doesn't need a motion in the House of Representatives. He doesn't need a motion in the House of Representatives.
To put out this tile that says they're going to supercharge prefab and modular homes. Really clear. That's the solution. So this is just a complete admission of failure by the Labor Party. What are they offering Australians? That we live now in small dog boxes, in prefabricated and modular homes? That's what we have to look forward to. And Claire refuses to admit the problem is high rates of migration and just thinks we can somehow build our way out of importing 1 million people into the country. Well, here's a video of Claire's plan for supercharging prefabricated and modular homes in Australia. Just check this out. And of course, under the Albanese government, this will be the new great Australian dream.
Here in this God-given land of ours, Australia, this proud possession, our own piece of earth, that was built by our fathers who pioneered our heritage. Here in Australia, the land of our birth. God bless Australia, God bless Australia, all of the Anzac, the strong and the free. It's our homeland, our own land, to cherish for eternity. God bless Australia, the land of the free.
All Claire is planning to do and Labor are planning to do is to build another Albaneseville. Our standard of living is declining. Our wealth, our household income is declining. And now Australians are being told that they've got to put up with much lower standards and quality of housing because of the incompetency of this Labor government. Secondly, we've got Pinocchio Jim Chalmers, our Treasurer. Well, he's out there telling us, and quote, "We're building more homes and making it easier to buy." Well, Jim, have a look at this graph from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, which shows you are not building more homes. In fact, home construction, the number of completed dwellings in this country, is currently about 20% lower than where it was back in 2016, 17 and 18. So while we're building less dwellings, we're building 20% less dwellings than what we were several years ago under this Labor government. You've flooded the place with migrants, a net million over the past 2 years, more than double what you had in your original budget. And you're seriously telling us with a straight face that you're making it easier for Australians to buy homes? The truth is, it has never been more difficult for Australians to buy a new home because of the incompetency of this Labor government and their mismanagement of the economy. And number 3, we have the hapless Labor member for Canberra, Andrew Lee, who still hasn't apologised for his conduct during COVID, where, remember, he's Dr. Andrew Lee, but not a medical doctor. He stood up in the federal parliament and dished out dangerous and false and misleading medical advice to Australians, telling us that vitamin C and HCQ didn't work. What medical advice was he giving? Well, now the science is absolutely clear. The peer-reviewed science is clear. Andrew Lee misled the Australian population on treatments. He got the science exactly wrong. He should apologise. He said that in Hansard. It's on the Hansard record for eternity. He needs to go into this parliament and apologise for what he said previously. Well, he's at it again with his misinformation. Just check this latest tweet out from the hapless Dr. Andrew Lee, telling us that Coles and Woolworths are the most profitable on earth. Well, supermarket, well, that is correct. And he says, and then he says, we're fixing it. Well, let's have a look at what the market thinks about we're fixing it, as though he's going to reduce Coles and Woolworths' profit margins. At the end of the very week, when he claimed that we're fixing it, Coles' share price increased 4.5%, a massive surge, and Woolworths even more. Woolworths increased 7.2% in 1 week, a massive jump in the share price for such a large company. In the very same week that Dr. Lee tells us we're fixing it on Coles and Woolworths' profit margins. An absolute joke. The market is laughing at you, Dr. Lee. And fourthly, we have our Prime Minister. Just watch this video and you just cringe in embarrassment. You shake your head that this is actually our Prime Minister, and he thinks Australians are that stupid that they will believe this. Just watch this.
Another $150 is coming off your power bill. That's every household, no strings attached. Just real money straight off your bill. And it's on top of the $300 we've already taken off. Peter Dutton would cut power bill relief so you'd pay more. But Labor is focused on helping with the cost of living, and we're building on it in this Tuesday night's budget.
Authorised by Anthony Albanese, LP Canberra.
So Albanese is telling us that there are, quote, no strings attached.
No strings attached.
To this $150 rebate that he's handing out for the budget time. Well, where does one start? Firstly, this is an admission of absolute failure, of complete incompetence of his and that nincompoop Blackout Bowen mismanagement of our electricity grid. If we've got all these cheap renewables coming into the system, why does he need to borrow $1.8 billion extra to give us another handout to try and offset the cost of these extra increasing electricity prices? And as for no strings attached, well, he forgot to mention that this money is other people's money that he's borrowed, and taxpayers will have to pay it back in the future. So the $150 that we are getting is a mirage. It's simply money that's borrowed that he's giving it to us. It is an admission of failure of the electricity grid, a failure of his policies of adding all these extra renewables into the grid. Because it is simply the more intermittent generation, remote intermittent generation you put into the grid, the less efficient the system is and the higher the costs go. That's why instead of electricity prices coming down, as Albanese and Blackout Bowen promised, electricity prices have continued to go up since they've been in office as more and more intermittent generation has come onto the grid. These clueless fools simply do not know what they're doing whatsoever, and things will only get worse if they continue. Of course, meanwhile, over in India, they've recently celebrated the million-tonne coal mark for the year. And of course, China, we know, they're up at the 4.8 million tonnes of coal a year, an increase of 1 billion tonnes over the last 5 years. And Albanese and Bowen are telling us Australians can't use our own coal down our eastern seaboard, but we can ship it off to India and China for both those countries to use to generate electricity for their people. And meanwhile, the cost of energy goes up and up and up here in Australia. And secondly, this so-called $150 rebate that Albanese is giving us is only going to, if you live... And secondly, this $150 rebate that Albanese has said he's going to give us actually doesn't even cover the increase in electricity bills that we're expected to have in the second half of this year. The average cost of electricity for a household in New South Wales is estimated by CanStar at around $500 a quarter or $2,000 a year. And in New South Wales, there's another 10% price rise coming. So we're going to get hit here in New South Wales with another $200 increase in our electricity bills because of the incompetence of Bowen and Albanese. And what? He's giving us a $150 rebate, which he's borrowing that money to give it to us, and we've got to pay it back later down the track. And he thinks Australians are going to fall for this? Surely we are not that stupid as a nation. Surely. And finally, in some other depressing news, some latest betting markets have come out that shown a hung parliament with a minority Albanese government is now favourite. So that means that the next government would not just be Labor, but it would be Labor with effectively Adam Bant and the Greens as Deputy Prime Minister. If we think the last 3 years of Albanese has been a disaster with incomes declining, just imagine how bad it would be in the next 3 years if he's there with Adam Bant and the Greens and the Teals running the show. God help Australia.